The diplomatic station called Harmony Nexus floated in the darkness of space like a massive silver wheel. It had been built 2,000 years ago by the Galactic Council, a place where different alien species could meet and talk without fighting. Today, it would host the most important meeting in human history. Captain Lee Hyun stood in the docking bay of her ship, the Endurance. She had dark circles under her eyes. 6 months of travel through space had been exhausting. Her crew was tired too, but they had finally arrived. Earth was about to meet the galaxy. "Captain, they're ready for us," said Lieutenant Kim Min-ho. He was young but smart. He had been Hyun's second-in-command for 3 years now. Hyun nodded and straightened her uniform. Behind her stood Ambassador Park Ji-woo, a tall man with gray hair, who had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. He looked nervous. "Remember," Park said quietly, "we must be respectful. The Council has been watching Earth for centuries. This is our chance to prove we're civilized." Hyun wanted to roll her eyes but didn't. She was a military officer, not a diplomat. She just wanted to get this meeting done, so she could sleep. They walked through the long corridors of the station. The walls glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols covered everything. Hyun had studied some alien languages, but there were thousands of species in the Council. She couldn't learn them all. The main hall was enormous. It could hold 10,000 people easily. Today, it held representatives from 50 different alien species. Hyun saw creatures she had only seen in pictures before. There were floating jellyfish-like beings that glowed pink. There were tall, thin aliens with 4 arms. There were small, furry creatures that looked almost cute. And there were the Krexians. The Krexians looked like giant reptiles that walked on 2 legs. They had scales that shimmered green and gold. Their eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils. Their teeth were long and sharp. They were the military power of the Galactic Council. Everyone feared them. At the center of the hall stood General Vok Thor. He was the largest Krexian Hyun had ever seen, at least 9 feet tall. His scales were darker than the others, almost black with gold patterns. Scars covered his arms and face. He wore armor that looked like it had seen 1,000 battles. "Humans of Earth," said a voice. It came from Counselor Rix Anna, an insectoid alien with multiple eyes and delicate wings. "You are here because your species has developed faster than light travel. This is the sign we wait for. You are now ready to join the civilized galaxy." Ambassador Park stepped forward and bowed. "We are honored to be here. Earth has waited so long for this moment. Before you can join," Rixana continued, "you must witness the traditional greeting of warriors. General Vok Thor will perform the ceremony of strength. This is how the Krexian Empire welcomes new species." Hyun frowned. Nobody had mentioned a ceremony. She just wanted to sign whatever papers they needed and go rest. General Vok Thor stepped into the center of the hall. The lights dimmed. A spotlight shone on him. He raised his arms above his head. Then, he began to roar. It was the loudest sound Hyun had ever heard. It echoed off the walls and ceiling. It went on and on. Vok Thor beat his chest with his fists. The sound was like thunder. He showed his teeth and claws. He pulled out weapons from his belt and held them high. Other Krexians in the crowd roared with him. Hyun understood this was supposed to be impressive. It probably was impressive. But she had been awake for 20 hours straight. The roaring was very loud. It was also very long. 5 minutes passed. Then, 10. Vok Thor was still roaring and beating his chest and showing his weapons. Hyun's eyes started to feel heavy. The warmth of the hall made her sleepy. She tried to focus, but the roaring just went on and on. 15 minutes. Hyun felt her jaw stretching. Before she could stop it, she yawned. It was a big yawn. The kind you can't hide. The roaring stopped immediately. The hall went silent. Every alien in the room turned to stare at Hyun. General Vakthor's yellow eyes locked onto her. His scales seemed to darken. His claws extended fully. Did you just... Vakthor's voice was low and dangerous. Yawn? Hyun realized her mistake. But she was too tired to be scared. She rubbed her eyes and said, Yeah. Sorry about that. Are you done yet? Some of us have been traveling for 6 months. The hall exploded with noise. Aliens made shocked sounds in hundreds of different languages. Ambassador Park's face went pale. Kim Minho grabbed Hyun's arm, but she shrugged him off. Done? Vakthor roared. His voice shook the floor. Done? I was performing the sacred ceremony of strength. This ritual is 10,000 years old. It is the greatest honor to witness it. Right, Hyun said. She was so tired that fear couldn't quite reach her brain. It's been 15 minutes of roaring. I got the point after the first minute. You're strong. You're scary. Message received. Counselor Rixana made a clicking sound of distress. Captain Hyun, you must understand. In 10,000 years, no species has ever shown disrespect during this ceremony. Never. I wasn't being disrespectful, Hyun said, finally realizing how much trouble she was in. I'm just exhausted. We've been in space for half a year. Before that, we trained for 2 years. I haven't had a good night's sleep in months. Excuses! Vakthor shouted. He pointed a clawed finger at Hyun. You have insulted me. You have insulted the Krexian Empire. You have insulted every warrior who has ever performed this sacred ceremony. Ambassador Park rushed forward. He bowed deeply to Vakthor. Please, General. Captain Hyun meant no disrespect. Humans are new to your customs. We didn't know. Ignorance is no excuse. Vakthor's tail lashed behind him, smashing into the floor. If humans cannot show proper respect, then humans are not worthy of joining the council. Other aliens began talking among themselves. Some seemed angry. Others seemed confused. A few looked almost amused. What would satisfy your honor, General? Park asked. His voice was shaking. Vakthor's eyes glowed with anger. A trial of worth. Single combat between me and this disrespectful human. If she survives and shows proper warrior spirit, perhaps I will forgive this insult. If she refuses, then Earth will be marked as unworthy. You will return home and never be allowed in council space again. Hyun felt her tiredness burn away. She understood now. Her yawn might have just destroyed Earth's future in the galaxy. Combat? She asked. Yes, Vakthor said. In 3 days, in the arena, you will face me, and we will see if humans have any honor at all. Kim Minho whispered urgently to Hyun. Captain, you can't fight him. He's twice your size. He's a trained warrior. This is suicide. But Hyun looked at Ambassador Park's desperate face. She looked at the alien crowd, all watching to see what humans would do. She thought about Earth, about everyone back home who was counting on this mission. She stepped forward and looked up at General Vakthor. Fine. 3 days. I'll be there. Vakthor showed all his teeth in what might have been a smile. Good. Perhaps you have some courage after all. We shall see. Farm. 24:5. As the humans were escorted out of the hall, Hyun heard the aliens talking. Most thought she would die. Some thought she was brave. Others thought she was stupid. Park walked beside her, silent and angry. Kim Minho looked worried. Captain, Kim Minho finally said. What's the plan? Hyun yawned again, unable to help it. First, sleep. Then we figure out how to beat a 9-foot alien warrior without dying. Should be simple enough. But she didn't feel confident. She felt like she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. And she had 3 days to fix it. The training room on the Endurance was small, but had everything Hyun needed. For 3 days, she barely slept. She studied every video of Krexian combat they had. She watched how Vakthor moved. She learned how Krexians fought. Lieutenant Kim Minho helped her train. He was good at analyzing patterns. They're strong, he said, watching another video. But they always do the same moves. Look. Every Krexian warrior starts with this roar and chest beat. Then they circle 3 times. Then they charge. It's all ritual, Hyun said, breathing hard after practicing dodges. They follow forms. Yes. Like a dance they've done for thousands of years. Minho paused the video. But Captain, even knowing the pattern, he's still much stronger than you. 1 hit, and you're done. Hyun wiped sweat from her face. Then, I won't get hit. On the second day, Dr. Choi Dae-eun visited the training room. She was Earth's xenobiologist, the person who studied alien life. She carried a data tablet. I found something, Dae-eun said. She showed them scans of Krexian anatomy. Their scales are thick, almost like armor. But look here. She pointed to the joints. The elbows, knees, and neck have softer tissue. Those are the weak points. Can I hurt him there? Hyun asked. Maybe. But there's something else. Dae-eun pulled up another image. Krexians have a 3rd lung here, in their lower back. It helps them roar so loud, but it's vulnerable. A strong impact there would make breathing difficult for them. Hyun studied the image. So I target the joints and the back. Quick strikes. Stay away from his claws and teeth. Exactly. But Hyun, Dae-eun looked worried. This is still very dangerous. I know, Hyun said simply. Ambassador Park came to see her on the 3rd morning. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Captain Hyun, he said formally. I need to say something. This situation is my responsibility. I should have prepared you better. I should have told you about their customs. Hyun shook her head. I yawned. That's on me. Now I fix it. But you might die today. Maybe. But if I don't fight, Earth loses its chance. Forever. Hyun looked at Park. I'm a soldier. This is what we do. We put ourselves at risk so others don't have to. Park was quiet for a moment. Then he bowed to her. Good luck, Captain. The arena was huge. It could hold 50,000 spectators. Today, it was full. Aliens from every council species had come to watch. Some came to see justice. Others came to see a human die. A few came hoping to see something surprising. The arena floor was smooth metal. The ceiling was open to space, held back by force fields. Stars shone above. Cameras floated everywhere, recording everything. This fight would be broadcast to 1,000 worlds. Hyun walked onto the arena floor wearing light armor. It wouldn't stop Vakthor's claws, but it might slow them down. She carried no weapons. The rules said this was hand-to-hand combat only. On the other side of the arena, General Vakthor entered. The crowd roared with approval. He wore ceremonial armor that showed all his battle scars. His claws gleamed. His eyes locked onto Hyun with pure hatred. Counselor Rixana floated above the center of the arena. Her voice was amplified to fill the space. This is a trial of worth, she announced. General Vakthor of the Krexian Empire challenges Captain Lee Hyun of Earth. The combat will continue until one yields or cannot fight. May honor be restored. The crowd cheered. Hyun's heart pounded. Vakthor began his pre-combat ritual. He roared. He beat his chest. He showed his claws and teeth. He recited his battle honors in the Krexian language. The list of his victories was very long. He had fought in 100 battles. He had defeated warriors from 20 different species. He was a legend. The ritual took 20 minutes. Hyun waited patiently. She used the time to stretch and breathe. She ate a protein bar from her pocket. Some aliens laughed at this. Others seemed confused. Vakthor's eyes narrowed when he saw her eating during his ritual, but he continued. Finally, the ritual ended. Rixana raised one of her limbs. Begin. Vakthor roared and charged. He was fast for his size. His claws reached for Hyun's throat. Hyun dodged to the side. She had practiced this move 1,000 times. Vakthor's claws hit nothing but air. The crowd gasped. Vakthor turned and attacked again. This time, he used the traditional Krexian strike pattern, a series of 5 slashes that came from specific angles. It was beautiful and deadly. Hyun had memorized this pattern. She ducked under the first slash, stepped back from the second, rolled under the third. The fourth and fifth missed completely. Vakthor stopped. He looked confused. "Why don't you attack?" "Waiting for my moment," Hyun said. This made Vakthor angrier. He performed another ritual move, the Warrior's Challenge. He beat his chest 3 times and roared. Then, he charged again. Hyun didn't watch his claws. She watched his feet. She saw when he committed to the charge. At the last second, she dropped low and swept his legs. Vakthor, moving too fast to stop, fell. He crashed into the arena floor with a sound like thunder. The crowd went completely silent. Vakthor got up, embarrassed and furious. "You fight without honor. You use tricks. I use what works," Hyun said. Vakthor roared and abandoned the formal patterns. He attacked with pure rage. But anger made him sloppy. Hyun dodged and weaved. She was smaller and faster. Every time he swung, she wasn't there. Then she saw her opening. Vakthor overextended on a claw strike. His back was exposed. Hyun darted in and struck hard at the spot. Dr. Daeun had shown her where the third lung was. Vakthor gasped. His breathing became labored. His next roar was weak and cut short. While he was stunned, Hyun moved. She jumped onto his back, wrapped her arm around his thick neck in a chokehold, and locked her legs around his waist. She found the soft spot at his elbow with her other hand and applied pressure to the joint. Vakthor tried to throw her off. He spun and reached back with his claws. But Hyun held on. She increased the pressure on his neck and elbow. 47 seconds had passed since the fight began. "Yield," Hyun said quietly, close to his ear. Vakthor struggled more, but he couldn't breathe properly. His vision started to blur. Finally, he tapped her arm 3 times. The universal signal of surrender. Hyun let go immediately and jumped back. She raised her hands to show she wouldn't attack further. Vakthor collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. The crowd was in complete shock. Nobody made a sound. Then Vakthor stood up slowly. His eyes blazed with emotion. But it wasn't just anger now. It was something more complicated. You won," he said. His voice was rough. "But you dishonored the combat. You didn't follow the forms. You didn't announce your attacks. You used." He searched for the word. "Tricks." Hyun was tired of this. "General, I used tactics. Strategy. I studied how you fight and found weaknesses. That's not dishonor. That's common sense. Combat is sacred. There are proper ways to fight. Your proper ways would have gotten me killed." Hyun stepped closer to him. She was still tiny compared to him, but she didn't back down. "I didn't come here to dance. I came here to win. And I won. You did not prove your warrior spirit. I proved I could beat you in less than a minute. What more do you want?" The crowd began talking. Aliens argued with each other in dozens of languages. Some thought Hyun was right. Others agreed with Vakthor. The argument spread through the arena like fire. Counselor Rixana tried to restore order. "The human won the trial of worth. By our laws, her honor is proven." "By laws, yes," Vakthor shouted. "But not by tradition. Not by the warrior code." He turned to face the council representatives in the crowd. "I challenge Earth itself. Let them prove their worth in a true test. Not single combat with tricks, but real warfare. Let humanity defend a colony against a Krexian assault. If they fail, Earth becomes a Krexian protectorate. If they succeed, He paused. If they succeed, I will personally sponsor their entry to the council. The crowd erupted with noise again. This was unprecedented. Ambassador Park, watching from the stands, looked horrified. Kim Minho looked worried. Dr. Daeun was frantically calculating something on her tablet. Hyun looked up at Vokthor. She understood now. He couldn't accept that his traditional way had lost. He needed to prove that Krexian methods were still superior. This wasn't about honor anymore. It was about his entire worldview being challenged. Fine, Hyun said. When and where? Vokthor smiled, showing all his teeth. 1 week. Sigma Quadrant. My forces against yours. We'll see if human tricks work in real war. As Hyun left the arena, Kim Minho rushed to her side. Captain, you just agreed to fight an entire Krexian assault force. I know. We don't have an assault force here. We have the Endurance and 500 Marines. Then we'd better start planning. Hyun looked back at Vokthor, who was watching her leave. She wondered if she had just made things better or much, much worse for Earth. The simulation zone in Sigma Quadrant looked like a real colony. There were buildings, streets, parks, and homes. 10,000 holographic civilians walked around, going about their daily lives. They looked completely real. If they died in the simulation, they would count as casualties. Captain Hyun stood on a hill overlooking the colony. She had 500 human Marines with her. Against them would be 3,000 Krexian warriors, led by General Vokthor himself. The mission was simple. Hold the colony for 72 hours. If the humans lost more than 10% of the civilians, they failed. Above the colony, 50 different alien species had brought ships to watch. Cameras recorded everything. This would be seen across the entire galaxy. Lieutenant Kim Minho stood beside Hyun, looking at his tactical display. The Krexian force is enormous, Captain. 3,000 warriors. All experienced. Standard galactic doctrine says defenders need at least equal numbers to hold position. Good thing we don't use standard galactic doctrine, Hyun said. She had spent the last week studying how galactic species fought wars. What she learned shocked her. Warfare in the galaxy was nothing like warfare on Earth. Galactic battles were formal affairs. Armies met in open fields. Commanders announced their attacks before making them. Champions fought duels to decide major engagements. Civilians were evacuated in organized patterns with advance notice. Armies didn't fight at night because it was considered dishonorable. Camouflage was seen as cowardly. Traps and ambushes were forbidden by the rules of honorable warfare. They fight like it's a sport, Hyun had said when she read the rules. Not like their lives depend on it. Now she had to use that knowledge. She called her command team together. Besides Minho, there was Sergeant Kang Sora, a special operations expert with cold eyes and quick hands. Dr. Choi Dae-eun was there to analyze Krexian patterns. Engineer Oh Min-jae, young and creative, would handle equipment. Here's the plan, Hyun said. We're not going to fight their way. We're going to fight the human way. That means we use every advantage we have. Define every advantage, Sora said with a small smile. She already knew what was coming. Fortifications, traps, ambushes, night fighting, camouflage, guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare. Everything they think is dishonorable, we use. Hyun looked at each of them. They want to see how humans fight? Let's show them. The team split up. Engineer O and his people began digging. They created trenches, bunkers, and strong points. They fortified buildings. They set up overlapping fields of fire. They planted mines in paths the Krexians would likely use. Sergeant Sora trained teams in hit-and-run tactics. Small groups of Marines learned to strike fast and disappear. They practiced moving silently. They learned to use the colony's buildings like a maze. Dr. Daeun studied Krexian psychology. They value direct confrontation, she reported. They see retreating as shameful. We can use that. Make them think they're winning. Then trap them. Lieutenant Minho coordinated communications. The Marines had earpieces that let them talk instantly. The Krexians used drum signals and horn blasts because those were traditional. It gave humans a huge advantage. On the morning of the first day, General Vakthor's army arrived. They looked magnificent. 3,000 Krexian warriors in perfect formation, armor shining, banners flying. They marched in rhythm, roaring their battle songs. They stopped 1 mile from the colony. Vakthor sent a messenger forward. The messenger carried a formal challenge, written on cloth. It announced that the attack would begin at noon. It listed which gates they would attack. It promised honorable combat. The messenger looked confused when Hyun thanked him politely but didn't send a response back. At noon exactly, the Krexian army advanced. They marched in formation toward the main gate. 3,000 warriors, moving like one unit. Their war drums beating. They expected to see human forces assembled to meet them. Instead, they found the main gate wide open, and nobody there. Vakthor halted his army. This wasn't right. Where were the defenders? Where was the opposing army? "Cowards!" one of his commanders shouted. "They hide!" But Vakthor was more thoughtful. He remembered how Hyun had fought in the arena. "Be careful," he ordered. "Move forward." Slowly, the Krexians entered the colony through the main gate. The streets were empty. Civilians had vanished. Buildings showed no signs of defenders. It was like a ghost town. Then the first mine exploded. 20 Krexian warriors went down. Before they could react, gunfire came from windows and rooftops. Not a lot of fire, just enough to wound a few more warriors. Then it stopped. The Krexians roared and charged the buildings. When they smashed through the doors, nobody was there. The humans had already retreated through back exits and tunnels. "They run," a Krexian captain shouted. "They fight without honor." But more mines exploded as they chased. More gunfire came from different buildings. The Krexians couldn't pin down where the humans were. Every time they found a position, it was already empty. Vakthor began to understand. The humans weren't trying to fight an honorable battle. They were making the Krexians waste energy, time, and numbers. By nightfall of the first day, the Krexians had captured several blocks of the colony. But they had lost 300 warriors. The humans had lost only 15. "We rest now," Vakthor commanded. "We don't fight at night. It's not honorable." But the humans didn't rest. As darkness fell, Sergeant Sora led raids. Small teams of Marines struck Krexian camps silently. They sabotaged equipment. They caused confusion. They disappeared before the Krexians could respond. The Krexians, not used to fighting at night, were disoriented. Their excellent eyesight meant nothing in the smoke the humans deployed. Their hearing was overwhelmed by noise grenades. By morning of the second day, the Krexians were exhausted and angry. They had barely slept. Vakthor had lost 400 warriors total now. The humans had lost 32. Watching from the observation ships, alien commanders were shocked. Some were horrified at human tactics. "They fight like animals," one said. "No honor, no rules," but others were fascinated. "Look at the efficiency," a military historian said. "This is how our ancestors fought. Before civilization. Before rules." On the second day, Vakthor changed tactics. He split his forces into smaller groups. They would clear the colony building by building. Hyun was waiting for this. She had Minho set up a trap. One building looked weakly defended. The Krexians saw it and attacked with 500 warriors. The building was rigged to collapse. When the Krexians were inside, Engineer O triggered the explosives. The building came down, not killing anyone, but trapping hundreds of warriors under rubble. It would take them hours to dig out. Vakthor watched this happen and felt something he rarely felt. Doubt. The human female was outthinking him at every turn. That afternoon, he tried something different. He had his warriors announce a ceasefire. He asked to meet with Hyun under a flag of truce. They met in the middle of a street. Vok Thor towered over Hyun. His armor was dusty and dented. His eyes were tired. "You don't fight like warriors," he said. "You hide. You trick. You attack at night. This is not warfare." Hyun looked up at him. "You're right. This isn't your kind of warfare. This is human warfare. We learned it the hard way, over thousands of years of fighting each other. But where is the honor? Where is the glory? Where is the glory? General, you're worried about honor. I'm worried about keeping people alive." Hyun pointed to the colony. 10,000 civilians are in there. I've lost 40 Marines so far. You've lost 600 warriors. Every single civilian is still alive. That's my honor. That's my glory. End quote. You make war sound like... Vok Thor searched for words. Like a job. Something practical. That's exactly what it is. You make it sound like art or religion. It's not. It's survival. This conversation was being broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings were listening. Some were angry. Some were thoughtful. Some were beginning to question everything they knew about warfare. Vok Thor returned to his army. He had lost the argument, but not the battle. He had one more day. On the third day, Vok Thor tried to use human tactics against them. He split his forces into small groups. He tried ambushes. He tried night attacks. But his warriors weren't trained for this. They kept making mistakes. They announced themselves with roars. They followed patterns. They couldn't break thousands of years of tradition in one day. Meanwhile, the humans got more effective. They knew the colony like their own home now. They struck from unexpected angles. They used the Crexians' own honor against them. When Crexians challenged them to face-to-face combat, they simply didn't show up. By the end of the 72 hours, the simulation ended. Final count. Humans lost 23 Marines. Crexians lost more than 4,000 warriors. All 10,000 civilians survived. The numbers flashed on screens across the galaxy. Silence filled the observation ships. General Vok Thor stood in the center of the colony, surrounded by his exhausted warriors. Captain Hyun approached him. "We weren't playing the same game," she said quietly. "You were fighting to prove honor. I was fighting to win." Vok Thor looked at the small human female who had defeated his entire army with 500 soldiers. He felt something crack inside his worldview. "How?" he asked simply. "Because on Earth, we don't have rules for warfare. We just have one goal. Survive. Whatever works, we use. Honor comes from protecting people, not following traditions." A Crexian commander named Thexiel approached. He was younger than Vok Thor but respected. He looked at Hyun with new eyes. "Our ancestors fought this way," Thexiel said quietly. "Before we became civilized. Before we had rules. They fought to survive." He turned to Vok Thor. "General, maybe we forgot something important when we became civilized." Vok Thor didn't answer. He was thinking. The galaxy was watching. Everything had changed. 3 days after the simulation ended, Captain Hyun was filling out reports on the Endurance when the alarms went off. Lieutenant Minho rushed to the bridge. "Captain, we're receiving an emergency distress call. It's from a council mining colony in the frontier territories." "What's the situation?" Hyun asked, putting down her tablet. "They're under attack. The Xaloth swarm." Minho's face was grim. Hyun had read about the Xaloth. They were a hive-mind species that consumed everything in their path. The Galactic Council had been fighting them for 300 years. It was a slow, grinding war that neither side was winning. "How far?" Hyun asked. 6 hours at maximum speed. "But Captain, we haven't been assigned to help. We're still technically not members of the Council. This isn't our fight." Hyun stood up. 50,000 civilians are about to die. That makes it our fight. Plot a course. Maximum speed. Ambassador Park tried to argue with her. Captain, we could cause a diplomatic incident. We have no authority to. We have the authority of being decent people, Hyun interrupted. We're going. The Endurance arrived at the colony to find chaos. The mining colony was built on an asteroid rich in valuable minerals. 50,000 beings lived and worked there. Now, the Xaloth swarm was attacking. The Xaloth looked like insects but were much larger. Each warrior was the size of a human. They had 6 legs, sharp claws, and mandibles that could cut through metal. They moved in perfect coordination because they shared one mind. Thousands of individual creatures, but only one consciousness. General Vakthor's fleet was already there. 10 Krexian warships were trying to defend the colony. But they were losing. Hyun watched the battle unfold on her screens. The Krexian forces were fighting bravely, but using their traditional tactics. They formed defensive lines. They fought with honor and courage, but the swarm didn't care about honor. They attacked in waves, without stopping, without fear. When one wave died, another came immediately. The Krexians are being overwhelmed, Dr. Daeun said, analyzing the tactical display. They're losing ground every minute. At this rate, the colony falls in 4 hours. Open a channel to Vakthor's flagship, Hyun ordered. A moment later, Vakthor's face appeared on screen. He looked tired and covered in swarm blood. Behind him, Hyun could hear explosions and roaring. Human, Vakthor said. What are you doing here? Saving your life. Stop using traditional tactics and let us help, or thousands die. Your choice. Vakthor's pride wanted to refuse. But he looked at his tactical displays. He was losing. His warriors were dying. The civilians were dying. He thought about what Hyun had said 3 days ago. You're worried about honor. I'm worried about keeping people alive. What do you propose? He asked. Combined operation. Your strength with our tactics. But you have to trust me and follow my lead. It was the hardest thing Vakthor had ever done. To accept help from the human who had humiliated him. To put his warriors under her command. But he looked at the civilian casualties mounting and made his choice. Agreed. What are your orders? Hyun worked fast. She had Lieutenant Minho coordinate with the Krexian fleet. She had Sergeant Sora prepare the Marines for immediate deployment. She had Dr. Daeun analyze swarm biology for weaknesses. She had Engineer O start adapting human weapons to work with Krexian systems. The swarm doesn't think like us, Daeun explained to the command staff. They're one mind controlling thousands of bodies. They don't feel fear or pain. But that's also their weakness. They follow patterns because one mind can't perfectly control that many bodies at once. They use simple, repeated tactics. Can we use that? Hyun asked. Yes. If we can disrupt their coordination, even temporarily, they'll become confused. Hyun formulated a plan. She explained it to Vakthor over the communication channel. He listened, and something changed in his eyes. He was beginning to understand how humans thought. The first step was to stop fighting the way the Krexians had been fighting. No more defensive lines. No more standing ground. Instead, they would use mobility. Sergeant Sora led a team of human Marines and Krexian warriors down to the colony surface. The combination was strange but effective. Krexians were strong and tough. Humans were fast and clever. Together, they moved through the colony in small teams, striking the swarm from unexpected angles. Don't fight them head-on, Sora instructed the Krexians. Hit them from the side, from behind, from above. Make them chase you. Wear them down. The Krexians struggled with this at first. It went against all their training. But Commander Thexiel understood immediately. He helped translate human tactics into something his warriors could use. Think like hunters, he told them, not warriors. We are not fighting for glory today. We are fighting to survive. On the colony, the fighting changed. The swarm suddenly couldn't find solid targets. Every time they massed for an attack, the defenders had already moved. Human and Krexian teams set traps, used ambushes, and struck at weak points. Dr. Yawned discovered something crucial. The swarm coordinated through chemical signals. She developed a compound that disrupted these signals. Engineer O loaded it into grenades. When human marines threw these grenades into swarm formations, the creatures became confused. They stumbled into each other. Some attacked their own kind. The perfect coordination fell apart for precious seconds. Those seconds were enough. Krexian warriors, following Hyun's tactics, used those moments to strike hard and then retreat before the swarm recovered. In orbit, Hyun coordinated the space battle. The swarm had ships too. Organic vessels that spit acid and released more warriors. The council ships had been fighting them in traditional naval formations. Break formation, Hyun ordered. Use hit and run. Don't give them a solid target. The Krexian ship captains hesitated. Breaking formation was considered cowardly. Vakthor's voice came over the command channel. Do as the human says. I have fought her twice now. Both times. I learned she is right, even when it seems wrong. The fleet scattered. Ships attacked individually, from different angles, at different times. The swarm ships didn't know where to focus. The coordinated swarm tactics that had worked for 300 years suddenly failed. 8 hours into the battle, the tide turned. The swarm began to retreat. They had lost too many creatures, and the one mind controlling them decided this colony wasn't worth the cost. The last swarm warriors fled to their ships. The organic vessels pulled back and jumped away into deep space. The colony was saved. 45,000 civilians survived. 5,000 had died, mostly in the first hours before Hyun arrived. The Krexian forces had lost 800 warriors. The human marines had lost 32. Captain Hyun met General Vakthor on the colony surface. Both were exhausted. Vakthor's armor was dented and burned. Hyun had a cut on her face, and her uniform was torn. They stood among the ruins of the main plaza, surrounded by tired warriors from both species. You saved us, Vakthor said quietly. My traditional tactics were failing. Your methods worked. Not just my methods, Hyun said. Your warriors were brave. They learned fast. This was a team victory. Vakthor looked at the mixed groups of human and Krexian soldiers helping evacuate civilians. Something he never thought he would see. Cooperation instead of competition. The swarm doesn't follow rules, he said. They don't fight with honor. I have fought them for 30 years, and we have barely held them back. In one battle, using your tactics, we decisively beat them. It's not magic, Hyun said. It's just being practical, adapting to the enemy instead of forcing them to adapt to us. Commander Thexiel approached. He was carrying a wounded human marine, treating the smaller being with surprising gentleness. General, Thexiel said, the warriors are asking questions. They want to learn more human tactics. They see now that honor and survival can both matter. Vakthor nodded slowly. He turned back to Hyun. I challenged you because you yawned at my ceremony. I thought you disrespected everything I believed in. I did disrespect it, Hyun said honestly. Not on purpose, but I did. I didn't understand your culture, and I didn't understand yours. I thought efficiency meant cowardice. I thought tactics meant dishonor. I was wrong. Vakthor's voice was heavy. 300 years, we have fought the swarm with traditional methods. 300 years of barely surviving. You have been in space for less than 1 year, and you already fight better than we do. Not better, Hyun corrected. Different. We learned these methods because we had to. Earth is a harsh world. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We learned, or we died. Your species became civilized and safe. You could afford traditions and honor. We never could. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the mixed crews work together to save lives. When we return to Harmony Nexus, Vakthor said, the Council will vote on Earth's admission. I was going to argue against you. But now, he looked at Hyun, now I will argue for you. The galaxy needs what humans have. Not because you're better, but because you remember what we forgot. What's that? Hyun asked. That survival comes first. Everything else is luxury. As the sun set on the colony, human and Krexian warriors sat together, sharing stories and food. The bridge between their species was beginning to form, built not on agreements or treaties, but on shared survival and mutual respect earned through battle. Hyun knew the real test was still coming. The council vote would determine Earth's future. But looking at the warriors around her, she felt something she hadn't felt before. Hope. 3 weeks after the battle at the mining colony, Captain Lee Hyun stood in the Great Hall of Harmony Nexus once again. This time was different. She wasn't tired. She wasn't unprepared. She knew exactly what was at stake. The Galactic Council had assembled to vote on Earth's admission. Representatives from 500 species filled the massive chamber. Some floated. Some stood on multiple legs. Some existed as energy fields. All were here to judge humanity. Counselor Rixana called the assembly to order. Her voice echoed through the chamber. We gather to decide the fate of humanity. Earth has proven itself in combat. They have shown unique capabilities. But the Council must decide. Are humans compatible with galactic civilization? Or are they too dangerous, too unpredictable? The debate began. Species after species stood to speak. Humans have no respect for tradition, said a representative from the Kelvorian Empire. They ignore rules that have maintained peace for millennia. If we accept them, chaos follows. But humans save lives, countered a delegate from the Praxian Federation. They protected a colony we were about to lose. They taught us new ways to fight the swarm. Shouldn't that matter more than tradition? They are efficient, said another voice. But efficiency without honor is barbarism. We left that behind when we became civilized. Ambassador Park sat in the Earth delegation section, his hands clasped tight. Lieutenant Minho watched the proceedings with nervous eyes. Doctor. Daeun took notes, analyzing which species seemed sympathetic and which didn't. Sergeant Sora, present in full dress uniform, whispered to Hyun. This isn't looking good, Captain. Hyun nodded but said nothing. She had expected this. The debate continued for 2 hours. Some praised human tactics. Others condemned them. Some saw humanity as the future. Others saw them as a dangerous return to the past. Finally, Counselor Rixana spoke. General Vakthor of the Krexian Empire has requested to address the Council. Given his interactions with humanity, we grant him this privilege. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew about Vakthor's challenges to the humans. Everyone had watched him lose both times. Most expected him to condemn Earth loudly and demand they be refused admission. Vakthor walked to the center of the hall. His armor was polished, his scales gleamed. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled species. Then, he did something that shocked everyone. He began to roar. It was the ceremony of strength, the same ceremony that had started this entire situation. His voice filled the chamber, echoing off the walls. He beat his chest. He showed his claws. He recited his battle honors. This time, Hyun understood what it meant. She stood respectfully and waited. She didn't yawn. She didn't interrupt. She gave him the respect the ceremony deserved. The ceremony lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, Vakthor turned to face Hyun directly. Captain Lee Hyun, he said formally. When we first met, you yawned during my sacred ceremony. I wanted to kill you for that disrespect. The chamber was completely silent. But you taught me something more important than respect for ceremony. You taught me respect for reality. Vakthor's voice was strong but not angry. I have fought in wars for 50 years. I have won hundreds of battles using traditional methods. I thought I knew everything about warfare and honor. He paused and looked around the chamber. Then, this small human female beat me in combat in 47 seconds. She defeated my entire army with 500 soldiers. She saved a colony that I was failing to protect. Each time, she used methods I thought were dishonorable. And each time, she was right, and I was wrong. Some species in the chamber shifted uncomfortably. This was not what they expected. I was angry, Vakthor continued, because she didn't fear me. She didn't follow our traditions. She didn't respect our ways. But I understand now. She wasn't trying to disrespect us. She was trying to save lives. She was doing her duty, the only way humans know how. Vakthor turned back to address the full council. For 300 years, we have fought the Xaloth swarm. 300 years of honorable combat, traditional tactics, and following all the rules of civilized warfare. And what have we achieved? A stalemate. The swarm grows stronger while we lose colonies one by one. He let that sink in. Then, humans arrive. They ignore our rules. They fight in ways we call dishonorable. And in one single battle, they beat the swarm decisively. 45,000 civilians saved. The first time in 300 years we have driven the swarm back so completely. Vakthor's voice grew stronger. I ask you, council members, what is honor? Is it following traditions while civilians die? Or is it doing whatever is necessary to protect life? Hyun felt something shift in the chamber. Some species were nodding. Others looked troubled, but thoughtful. Earth is dangerous, Vakthor admitted. Humans don't think like us. They don't follow our customs. They make us uncomfortable. But uncomfortable truths are still truths. The galaxy has become too civilized. We have forgotten how to truly survive. We have rules for everything, traditions for every situation. And those rules are killing us slowly. He gestured to Hyun. Humans remember what we forgot. They remember that survival comes before ceremony, victory before tradition, life before honor codes, not because they're barbaric, but because they come from a world that forced them to learn these lessons. Commander Thexiel stood up from the Crexian delegation. The general speaks truth. I fought alongside humans at the colony. I watched human marines and Crexian warriors work together. Our strength, combined with their tactics, created something more powerful than either alone. This is what we need. Counselor Rixana looked at Hyun. Captain, do you wish to speak before the council votes? Hyun stood and walked to the center of the hall. She looked small compared to most of the beings around her. But she didn't feel small. Council members, she began. I'm not a diplomat. I'm a soldier. So I'll speak plainly. General Vakthor is right about humans. We are dangerous. We don't follow your rules because we don't understand them yet. We're new to space, new to your civilization, new to your ways. She turned slowly, making eye contact with different species. But here's what we do know. We know how to survive. Earth is a dangerous world. Earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, diseases, predators. For millions of years, humans struggled just to stay alive. Then, we developed intelligence and started fighting each other. Thousands of years of war taught us hard lessons. We learned that honor doesn't feed children, tradition doesn't stop bullets, ceremony doesn't win battles. Her voice was firm, but not harsh. We learned that you do what works. You adapt or you die. You protect your people any way you can. Some of you think this makes us barbaric. Maybe you're right, but I've seen your history files. Every species here fought that way once. You all came from dangerous worlds. You all had to struggle and adapt and do whatever it took to survive. The only difference is that you forgot. You became successful and safe, and you could afford to develop honor codes and traditions and civilized ways. Hyun's voice softened slightly. We haven't had that luxury yet. Earth is still dangerous. Humans are still fighting. Maybe in 10,000 years, we'll be as civilized as you. Maybe we'll have elaborate ceremonies and strict traditions. But right now, we're what we are. Survivors who remember how to fight. She looked at Vakthor. The general said the galaxy needs what we have. I think he's right. Not because we're better, but because we're different. You have things we need to learn. Cooperation between species. Peaceful resolution of conflicts. Scientific advancement. Cultural richness. We have things you need to remember. Tactical flexibility, practical thinking, willingness to adapt, focus on survival. If you let us join the council, we won't fit in perfectly. We'll make mistakes. We'll offend people. We'll do things your way sometimes, and our way other times. But we'll also help you. We'll fight beside you. We'll teach you what we know. And we'll learn from you. The chamber was quiet. Hyun took a breath and finished. My ship is called the Endurance. That's what humans do best. We endure. We survive. We adapt. We protect our people and anyone who stands with us. That's all we're offering. Take it or leave it. She walked back to her delegation and sat down. Ambassador Park looked at her with wide eyes. That wasn't the diplomatic speech he had prepared for her, but it was honest. It was human. Councillor Rixana stood. The council will now vote. All in favor of admitting Earth to the Galactic Council. Signify, according to your species' custom. Lights began to appear across the chamber. Different colors for different species. Blue meant yes. Red meant no. Yellow meant abstain. The voting took 10 minutes. When it finished, the results appeared on massive displays. 312 yes. 142 no. 46 abstain. Earth had been admitted to the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted with noise. Some species celebrated. Others protested. Most seemed cautiously optimistic. Vakthor approached Hyun. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then, Vakthor extended his clawed hand in a human gesture. Welcome to the galaxy, Captain. Hyun took his hand and shook it. His grip could have crushed her bones. But he was gentle. Thank you, General. Don't thank me yet, Vakthor said with something that might have been a smile. Now the real work begins. We need to train Council forces in human tactics. We need to integrate your methods with ours. We need to prepare for the next swarm attack. Sounds like you're offering me a job. Admiral Hyun has a nice sound to it, doesn't it? Hyun blinked. Admiral? The Council is creating a new division. Military innovation and cross-species tactical development. Someone needs to lead it. Someone who understands both human and galactic thinking. Vakthor's eyes gleamed. I can think of no one better. 1. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. Admiral Lee Hyun established her headquarters on Harmony Nexus. Lieutenant Kim Minho became the liaison officer between human and alien forces. Sergeant Kang Sora opened the first cross-species combat training facility. Dr. Choi Dae-un led research into alien biology and tactical applications. Engineer Oh Min-jae worked on integrating human and alien technologies. Human tactics spread through the Council military. Not completely, not universally, but enough. Some species adopted them eagerly. Others adapted them to fit their own styles. All of them began to think more flexibly. The swarm attacked twice more in those 6 months. Both times, the combined forces drove them back with minimal casualties. The 300-year stalemate was beginning to turn into a slow victory. One evening, Admiral Hyun stood in her office looking out at the stars. General Vakthor entered without knocking. They had become comfortable with each other. Reviewing battle plans? He asked. Just thinking, Hyun said. About that first day, when I yawned at your ceremony. Vakthor made a sound that might have been a laugh. I wanted to destroy you. I thought you were the most disrespectful being I had ever met. I thought you were all show. Just noise and posturing. We were both right, Vakthor said. And both wrong. Yeah. Hyun smiled. So what now? Now? Vakthor looked out at the stars too. Now we teach the galaxy that survival and honor can coexist. That tradition and innovation aren't enemies. That being civilized doesn't mean being weak. The human way. The galactic way. Vakthor corrected. We're all in this together. Now. Far below them, in the training facilities, human marines sparred with Krexian warriors. They learned from each other, taught each other, protected each other, different species working together, combining their strengths, covering each other's weaknesses. The galaxy had learned something important. Humanity wasn't uncivilized. They were combat evolved. They were survivors who remembered the lessons that others had forgotten. And in a universe full of threats, that made all the difference. Admiral Hyun turned away from the window. Come on, General. We have work to do. Always, Vakthor agreed. They walked out together, two warriors from different worlds, united by respect earned through battle and understanding, forged through conflict. The galaxy was changing, and humanity, despite their rough beginning, was helping to make it stronger. In the history files, scholars would record this time as the beginning of the new era. The era when the Galactic Council remembered how to truly fight. The era when civilization and survival learned to work together. The era that started because a tired human captain yawned at the wrong moment and ended up changing everything.